Buckle up, Buttercup, because this is the Untitled Nerdy Chat Show with me. I'm your host. I'm Brian Lunduke. To my left, according to you, is Chris Fisher on the top right square. That's how I should do this. I should introduce this like we're playing tic-tac-toe. On the top right square, we have Chris Fisher of Jupiter Broadcasting. Say hello to the universe, Mr. Man.
Hello, universe. Hello, B-Man. And
that's
I'm
enough.
Not gonna comment any more than that. It's done
The
right
bottom
there.
left square is Rob Braxman of Rob Braxman fame, one of the security crazy man of the internet. Say hello to the universe, Rob.
Hello, universe.
And
hey,
to the right is Wendell Wilson, the one, the only, the perfectly haired Wendell Wilson of Level 1 Tax. Say hello to the universe, Wendell.
How's it going? I don't know that I'm perfectly haired anymore. It's definitely moving.
It's pretty good. It's
but
pretty
we're
good.
Trying.
Yeah, I mean,
the coloring is on point too. I'm really liking the coloring.
Oh yeah, it's just
right. It's wisdom.
Can I say flat
lighting
out
tips from you
of the tech nerdy YouTubers and podcasters of the world? I think this might be the best haired group I have ever seen. I mean, this is fantastic. Look, my hair's not bad, but then look at Fisher over there. Oh my goodness, he's been working on that. He's got the product.
I think that mustache is doing the heavy lifting for you, B-Man. It's the stash.
Oh, wait, thank you so much. All right, boys and girls at home, I have absolutely wonderful news to share. I mean, this is breaking news. Everyone needs to sit back and prepare themselves for this one. Lunduke, broke my iPhone this weekend. I dropped it onto concrete and that screen shattered like a crazy man. It is dead. And I have been waiting for this iPhone to die for like 4 years. I need to preface this with a backstory, and I have thoughts I would like to get from all of you. I got this iPhone when I was working for Purism, and Purism makes this Librem 5 smartphone, right? And we were building this Librem 5 Linux powered smartphone. And so we got me an iPhone so I could test against it, like to show how much data leaks out of an iPhone and all that sort of thing. And how, the Purism Linux smartphone doesn't leak that much data, right? We were doing that stuff. So it was kind of half a joke that I got an iPhone. But since I had an iPhone and it had a perfectly nice camera, I'm like, well, I'm going to use it until it breaks. And then I'll get myself a phone that's anything other than this iPhone that clearly is meant just for 16-year-old girls. And then the darn thing didn't break. But finally, I dropped the sucker. And I'm not going to say I did it on purpose, but I haven't been using it with a case for about a year. So, we'll see about that. But now I get to get an actual phone, like an actual Android Calyx something phone that somewhat. Chris is saying no to Calyx. Why?
I mean,
why no
I like
to
your
Calyx?
flow. I didn't want to interrupt your flow.
Why no to Calyx? Why are you pooping on Calyx? Doesn't it respect the privacy of the Androids and the whatnots? Come on, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, what are you, an old man? What have you not heard of GrapheneOS? Are you not up to date?
That's what I use. So
Rob's using
years
Graphene?
ago. Oh yeah, GrapheneOS is where it's at now. That's where
why do I need Graphene over Calyx? Why?
I don't know. I'm kind of teasing. I think GrapheneOS has a better security model. So for example, on Calyx, to get some of the Google stuff working, it's kind of a security hack that sort of not really the ideal way to do it. On GrapheneOS, they created a sandbox, and all of the Play Services API, even the Play Store, they're all forced to run at user level permission. And they can't do anything without your permission. And you can individually activate just the aspects of the Google Play API you may or may not want.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, and it's all in a sandbox that is much more isolated than the kind of like the little library hack they're doing over on some of the other platforms.
Yeah.
So
are you saying that Calyx is nothing more than a little library hack?
No. The way to get the Google API compatibility is the hack.
Gotcha.
The biggest downside to GrapheneOS and why it's not as popular, I think, as Calyx is because Graphene, and it's a big one, Graphene only works on Pixel phones because they're using some of the onboard security hardware to do the encryption in GrapheneOS.
Yeah. Is that what you're using right now? Are you so Rob is using Graphene, right?
No. I'm using Calyx.
Oh, you're using Calyx. Oh, okay.
No,
Okay. Wait a minute.
I'm Calyx.
Wait a minute.
I use
why
BraxOS.
why is Chris Fisher next to me just so incredibly wrong? Because clearly he's wrong.
I
tell me why.
I got several phones here. So some of them, because I make my own phones. So some of them are using BraxOS, and my Pixels are
That's
using
right.
CalyxOS.
That's
So
right.
I have
I'd
several,
forgotten that
so.
you had that. That's awesome. Okay. What should I get? What does Rob Braxman of Rob Braxman Tech fame tell me I should put on my phone? What kind of phone should I buy hardware wise? And what OS should I put on it where it actually kind of respects my privacy and is somewhat usable? What should I get?
Well, actually, here you'll find that I'm not actually. I'm not going to push you into any. If you want to use Graphene, you can use Graphene. If you want to use Calyx,
Push me,
if you want
man.
to use Lineage, you can use any of that. I personally found
I don't want to
Lineage,
use Lineage.
no,
I don't
no.
want to use Lineage.
It's an easy path. You go to Swappa, you get a $200 Pixel 7. I just looked yesterday. You can get a Pixel 7 for $244 on swappa.com. You put GrapheneOS on that.
What the fart is a swappa.com?
Swappa.
I feel like I'm a 90-year-old man acting
man.
what the YouTubes are. What's a swappa.com?
You're welcome. I'm laying some wisdom
phones.
down. Yeah. Cheap phones, Swappa. It's like direct, person-to-person sales site. Swappa.com, $245-ish, $250. You get a Pixel 7, great device. Yeah. But they'll list the conditions.
Someone else has got all their grummies on it.
Yeah. All right, buy it
people
new,
smash their phone on their faces. I don't want their grummies and weirdness.
They do all kind. They take it to the bathroom too. You don't even want to go there.
Right. This is what I'm saying. I know what I do with my phone, and I don't want anyone else's phone.
You get your hands on a Pixel 5 through 8, whichever one fits your budget.
Okay.
You go to GrapheneOS's website. They have a web-based flasher. As long as you have an unlocked bootloader, you do it all from a Chrome web browser, a Chromium-based web browser. You click a few buttons. You've got GrapheneOS. It starts with a totally blank template. It's like the XFCE of Android phones. It's black and white, like a couple of icons. They have like a Chromium privacy fork on there. And then you just add the stuff you want. If you never want to touch Google, if you never want the Play stuff, if you never want any Google stuff at all, you never have to sign into a Google account. You never have to touch a Google server.
I can just F-droid it to install my stuff and be happy.
And you'll get it installed in 15 minutes through their webpage. And I think it does have superior privacy options. They did have some developer drama about a year ago. They got into
developer drama.
Yeah, they got into a tussle with Louis Rossmann, and that didn't go well. That developer eventually resigned, and now they have a new.
Wait a minute, back up.
Now, you may not know this, but everyone in the Graphene community hates me. I'm the most hated person in the Graphene community. So
that's perfect.
I don't support the Graphene.
That Graphene. I think you have to
attack me
the developers. Right. The developers will probably even respond to this conversation, even though I'm speaking very positively. It's kind of a hostile situation, but
what's up with that? So why'd they come after Lewis? Right? Lewis is out there saying we want to be able to repair my tractor. Right? Who can get upset at the guy who just says I want to repair my tractor? What do they got against Lewis? I don't know about this. I haven't heard of this.
Well,
what do they got against you, Rob?
That community has been attacking me for years. So they just led by that guy. So they just decided that because I don't promote them, that I should be
You're a jerk.
Target for attack. Because hey, why am I not talking about this platform everywhere I go? And
what's wrong, Rob?
You go attack me, and then you're expecting me to say, "Oh yeah, this good stuff." Come on, be serious.
That sounds like Debian in the Usenet days.
So
yes.
But generally speaking, though, from my point of view, I'm interested in the average person getting privacy, and I don't need to push any particular kind of OS or platform.
Yeah,
I talk more about the principles of what it should do, and believe it or not, even if you hate Lineage OS, it does the job. So therefore, if you have a Motorola, you don't really have a choice anyway. You can't put Graphene or Calyx or anything.
Sure.
So if you have a Motorola or OnePlus, well, obviously you're going to want to put Lineage on it. Do I want to use Lineage? It's not the easiest to support. because I have sold a ton of these phones,
Sure.
and a ton of pixels, and it's not the easiest to support. So I found that personally, that when I install Calyx, then I have the least amount of support. So that should tell you something.
So okay. So Fisher thinks that I should go out and I should get myself a Pixel with graphene, right? That's the official Fisher recommendation. What's the Rob recommendation? If I need to go out and buy a new phone right now, what should I get hardware wise, and what OS should I put on it? That makes it so my life is not too bad. So I'm not like fully stone aged, right? So like so I can do kind of some normal stuff that people use on smartphones.
Well, it's not.
You know what I'm saying?
The rule is just don't get a sucking iPhone. I mean, that ever in your life. So just make sure your audience knows this, because if you don't even understand what's in an iPhone, it's like it's just packed full of evil.
Oh,
so it's
no,
just
I couldn't
getting
agree
worse
more.
and worse.
I've been carrying a pocket full of evil for years.
Oh my God! So just so
I'm
you know,
super psyched about this.
But just so you know, so I do have, believe it or not, I have an iPhone 10, the last iPhone I ever bought. And when they started putting all that AI,
You mean
BS,
iPhone X?
Yes.
It's
pronounced 10. It's pronounced 10. So I, where I have that phone now? It's in a fucking Faraday bag.
Okay. I want to stop.
Off.
I want to
Turned
thank.
off in a Faraday bag.
I want to thank Rob for creatively censoring himself. But I want to say one thing before we go further, because I did not mention this earlier. This is a mostly family-friendly show. We try to avoid swearing and all sorts of naughty words. Try and think of it like this. You're a cowboy and you just went into a church in the Old West. The things you could say then without getting your keister kicked out, you can say now. All right. There we go. Wendell. What phone are you using right now? What's your phone? What's your main phone?
I like a Wi-Fi hotspot.
That's not my answer. What's your don't give me that. I agree with you. Give me a nice like laptop or tablet with a Wi-Fi hotspot. 90% of the time I'm happy. But what's your phone? You got a phone. What do you use?
I've got an old rooted Samsung Galaxy that is literally just used as a Wi-Fi hotspot.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow,
You're
smart.
Cool.
That's actually
okay. So
coolest thing I've ever heard. Yes.
Let's say that you're out and about. You're at the mall. You're at the mall with your lady friend, and you're thinking, I need to look up some movie showtimes. You turn on your Wi-Fi hotspot, and then you turn to what?
GPD Win Max 2023.
That was really specific. I love it.
Yeah. It's a tiny handheld computer.
What kind of battery life you get on that? Like if
8
you're
hours.
using it as a phone, 8 hours?
8 hours.
No,
Oh,
you
like
don't. You're
better
lying.
than Librem 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, better than the Librem 5.
And
Sorry about that, guys.
It's got an 80% keyboard. I mean, this is somebody who carried around.
How big is that? Can you put it in your pocket?
It's a little too big for the pocket. So I actually was debating between.
Do you have it close by right now? Can you hold it up?
I can.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't get up. Stay right there. Okay, but like use your hands. Show me with your hands, man. Pantomime that.
It's smaller. It's smaller than this book.
Well, that book is fargin' huge. My pockets are big, dude, but they're not that big. I need a phone.
You can just Google GPD Win Mini. It's tiny.
So
I have the Max, which is a little bigger.
So what I've got right now is this. This is the HTC Titan, which is a great phone. It's huge. It's got 6 gigs of RAM. It's put together with Fargan screws. You can like actual screws on that on the side. But the problem with it, nice big keyboard, the screen is exactly square. And I love it. Like for like emulating like old computers, it's like a dream. But there's like every Android app out there expects your screen to be like more of that widescreen thin thing. So none of them work. Like half of the games are all like squished and funky, and like nothing works on the friggin' square screen. Like I can't make it work. So like I need a phone that has like a phone shaped screen for fancy modern apps. So
sorry.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, back in the day, I was promoting the BlackBerry Bold because it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Screen and with a little keyboard, and
Wendell
and
gets up. I say, don't get up,
He-
Wendell. What's Wendell do?
he's
He
probably
friggin'
looking for
gets
his
up.
BlackBerry.
He's
He's looking for his
it.
BlackBerry Bolt.
He did.
So-
He did. Yeah.
So the problem is, and just same problem with your little device there is, which carrier is going to support that? I mean, if it's not 4G LTE, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So now I can't
Yeah.
promote BlackBerry Bolt. I got a stack in here, and so what are you going to use with it? That's the problem. We have a new tech problem now,
Yeah.
which is that we're being limited by these carriers to what we can actually use, and it may not end here. They might say 5G or you're out.
Oh, dude.
Eventually.
A couple
Coming
of years
soon, yeah.
ago, I was trying to get my old Palm OS Trio phone working,
Uh-huh.
and you can't provision them anymore. They don't. Oh, what do you got there? Is that the Cosmo?
No, it's the FX Tech 1.
Oh,
It's
Ah.
older, but it's still serviceable.
You like it?
but 3G, right?
Yeah, it's
Right? Give it a couple of
Wi-Fi
years, and you won't
only.
even be able to turn those
Wi-
on anymore.
yeah. And you can actually get a 4G model for this, but the 4G model for this kind of sucks.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. So, and you
I
got
mean-
the game controls, but if you want to hide the fact that you've got game controls, it's got the things built in to do that. And then so it's like, oh look, it's a tiny
You can
laptop.
hide it. That's ridiculous. That's
That is
ridiculous that
absolutely
you'd hide the
ridiculous.
controllers.
Yeah.
Don't hide what you got, man. Flaunt it. You out there,
Wow.
you got game controllers. You want people to see your game controllers.
I like
is-
it.
8 cores, 64 gigs of memory, 3 terabytes of storage. It has a 2280 M.2 as well as a 2230. So you have two.
That's
You
actually
can
pretty
dual
sweet.
boot. You can have a secure enclave, whatever, if you want. There's options.
You have like
I,
cubes or something, or tails running on that.
I talked to a listener who has NixOS running on it, and I kid you not, they take one of those out into the sea to do 3D modeling of boat crashes using that
No
machine.
way.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
so cool.
powerful. But I don't want to. I hate to be this guy, but I'm going to pull the dad card. I think as a dad, you need a phone, and I think the wife isn't going
Yeah.
to be happy with anything but a phone because if
Nope.
an emergency comes up when you're out, she wants to make a phone call, or the
Yep.
hospital needs to call you.
I have to. have a phone.
And I
It's
think
possible to reach me with a phone number, and the device will wake up.
I don't know. I mean, I think the Pixel 7 is the obvious device because it sits between the 8 and the long tail devices that are going to end support. So you've still got years of life on the 7. You can get it on a great
They're
budget.
pretty cheap.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing is you can
Do they have a
start
nice camera on the
effing.
Pixel 7?
Fantastic. The
see,
Pro's
that-
a little better. The Pro
See,
is
this is I need to be able to be contacted for the dad things, and I need a good camera because otherwise I got to carry another camera to take pictures of my kids when they blow snot out their nose. This is what I have to do.
the Pro
Pixel
actually
7.
has a great zoom. It really does.
As soon as I said snot, Wendell's like, "Oh, you want the Pixel 7 for that?"
Yeah, you
the,
do.
The Pixel 7's got the best booger contrast ratios. It's just fantastic.
But
How do you
I-
text message? I don't text message. It's the one thing that doesn't work. I've got number forwarding. It is so empowering having like 12 different numbers that go to a mobile device because then it's like, oh, I'm going to give you the phone number that doesn't ring most of the time because I know what you're going to do with it.
So I just told you before the broadcast that I lost access to my X account.
Yeah.
So now you got a 2FA problem in real life. Talk about your dad card here. How do you go to social media or anything without texting with
Yeah.
all the requirements now from your bank? My bank in 2024, every bank now requires me to, do text.
Yeah. Every time you log in, you have to text.
And so without a phone with texting, well, what do?
This
you're
is a
stuck
huge
now.
problem. So there used to be an API service you could sign up for and you could get text messages. So you can, and that works. But now companies are getting wise to it.
Oh,
like,
they're banning that.
Yeah,
they ban
this is
that.
like- This is
Oh,
like and
They
so I can-
blacklist. They have a
Yeah.
blacklist of. They say it has to be a real phone. Now this is.
I have the same thing. I use Google Voice for years. I've had a Google Voice account since before it was Google
They
Voice.
banned that. They banned
And yeah,
that.
all the texting for two-factor stuff, just ban it. So like only one or two of them work. It's annoying as all get out.
Now
Grand
wanna make-
Central.
I
That's
want
what
to
it was
make
called.
Grand Central. I was trying to remember the word here.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember when that came out, and you and I were sitting on a show geeking out about Grand Central and being super psyched about it, and grabbing our
Doing
Grand Central phone
voicemails
numbers.
for the shows and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. Oh, that was amazing. All right. So what you guys are telling me is I need to get a Pixel and install either Calyx or Graphene.
Try 'em both.
That's kind of the awesome.
Graphene takes 15 minutes. Give it a go.
Okay, I'll try them both.
Make sure it's unlocked. If you buy from some of the U.S. carriers, it may have a lock.
I gotta try and not get a used one though. Cause I can't. Use hardware I love, but used phones, man, I put them against my face, dude. I can't do used. I can't do used for those. I can't do it.
If you order it online, make sure it doesn't go through Langley.
See. All right.
It is a significant problem. You should always note is that 50% of pixels cannot be OEM unlocked. So
what?
50% of pixels cannot be OEM unlocked.
I didn't know that.
So this is why I sell the phones, because that's a risk. You buy one, you go to swap by and say, I'm going to buy a phone, and then you're stuck with a phone that cannot be OEM unlocked. I have one right here.
Yeah.
Cannot be OEM unlocked. I got
words of wisdom.
It's not that simple. In other words, so
man, the phone industry blows.
Oh, it is. It does.
All right, guys.
Anyway,
let's change away from the mobile stuff for a moment. We're going to talk about something that I guarantee will get all three of you yelled at for, and that excites me a lot. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty jazzed about everyone getting yelled at, because I spend most of my online life getting yelled at, and I just want to see other people get yelled at too, so I don't feel alone. Let's talk about what's happening with Red Hat and IBM. Just a little bit, because I've been following these things pretty closely. I'm going to do a quick sum up, trying my very best to skirt the politicalness part and get right to the part that I want to focus on here. Many of you may have seen that in December, a big media outlet that mostly focuses on very political topics had a big scoop of leaks that came out of IBM that showed that IBM has very discriminatory hiring practices, that they specifically hire and fire based on skin color. Now, that came out from the CEO and the board members, and this made a big splash. And immediately, the very next day, legal action was announced from a couple of different organizations. But then, the very next day after that, I started getting leaks from within Red Hat, which is owned by IBM. And of course, is the biggest Linux company on earth and does a huge amount for Linux. And it makes me feel weird seeing all the stuff coming out about it. And the stuff that came out was bonkers. I mean, they had whole training presentations basically telling people that depending on what skin color you are, you're evil. Like, they literally had a presentation where they had multiple slides that had a list of negative adjectives, and they all apply to white people because they're negative. And then they had non-white people have positive adjectives, and they had literally column after column of this. And we kept getting more and more leaks that have continued to come out throughout December. And I've started getting leaks from other companies doing the exact same thing in the tech industry, including Microsoft and a few others, which will be coming out over the coming days. But what I'm wondering about is what impact all of this is going to have on the whole tech world and to tech people in general. Because I've noticed people in general don't want to cover this right now. And I think for a lot of good reasons, right? Like most tech news outlets, they're not touching the story, even though it's going to be resulting in massive lawsuits of the biggest Linux companies in the world. Massive numbers of firings are going to already be starting to happen at IBM and massive tech companies. But like, do you see CNET or the Register or anyone else talking about it? No, because the moment they do, they're going to get yelled at by somebody. Right? Someone's going to yell at them, because inevitably, even if they don't take a stance, they're going to get yelled at. So what I'm curious about, and I see all three of you guys thinking how to answer this without getting yelled at yourself, and it's which I think is fantastic, is what happens to Linux and what happens to the operating system market in general once this starts to happen with Microsoft, as this starts to get increasing amounts of lawsuits and coverage in the coming days and weeks ahead. What happens? What happens? I want to know.
I have a really boring answer. If you want to start with me, I could. I'll be the downer.
I always want to start with a boring answer.
Unfortunately, I think well, not unfortunately, I shouldn't say that, but I think all of this is coming out just as this is going out of style. The DEI initiatives inside companies and the ground up initiatives for certain types of hiring practices. Because the reason I say that is it really all stems from 13 years of loose monetary policy that resulted in wacky investments in the tech industry, and they pretty shortly, put money everywhere it could go. They had more money than they knew what to do with on Wall Street, and so BlackRock,
You're not wrong.
and other large banks created the ESG investment category. And the ESG investment category isn't based on the fundamental revenue of a company. It's not based on their market. It's not really based on maybe the technology that they're going to develop and release in a few years. It's not. It's not even based on what their profits were. The ESG investment opportunities are based on their environmental, social, and governance practices, which means diversity and inclusion and how hard they are diversified and how hard they include. And the harder they include and the harder they diversify, the more they're basically pumping their ESG worth. So then companies can have sort of like, in a way, an ESG stock price. And the more serious you take this issue, these social issues, and the more institutionalized practices you make around ESG, the stronger your ESG score was. As a result, ExxonMobil has a higher ESG score than Tesla, even though Tesla kicked off the electric car revolution.
That's true. Yeah.
ExxonMobil has a higher ESG score because it's based on these internal metrics, which they track and then report, of course, to the market. And I think what we're now witnessing is this practice, which has infected all industries, from manufacturing to military.
It has. I just, I don't follow all those industries.
It's now in tech,
when
right?
People talk to me about like the petroleum industry. I'm like, I like cheap gas prices. Like, I don't know. I don't know much about it. I know a guy who knows a guy who works in that industry, but I don't know. I just know the tech. So, like, what? I think I agree.
I think it's fading, right? Because BlackRock has pulled back, right?
Yes.
Larry Fink was on CNBC saying that they're not really interested in ESG anymore. BlackRock is days away from launching a Bitcoin ETF, and now they're calling Bitcoin an environmentally friendly product. They're shifting the definition of ESG. And as monetary policy has been tightened, then it's more been merit performance than it has been governance performance that matters. So I think some of that has faded. And I think we're kind of maybe at the end of this wave. It's still a wave. It's still going to continue.
But this is the petering out point. So
maybe.
So do you think okay, so Red Hat is clearly like filled up with it. Like they just had a couple of weeks back all their company meetings at Red Hat and IBM, and people were asking like, do you have a comment on O'Keefe's leaks? Do you have a comment on Lunduke's leaks? What's the comment on this? And the comment thus far is no comment, right? Like they're making a firm no comment internally, and they're not responding to any journalists right now. But clearly the lawsuits have kicked off. They're going to be kind of easy lawsuits for the employees to win because so many of them already have damages that they can show. And so it makes it very easy. And those are going to get really public. What happens, like let's say to Red Hat specifically, what happens to Red Hat and to the Linux investment in general when after a whole year of Red Hat layoffs and Red Hat reducing their investment into Linux? And I mean, like Red Hat earlier this year, they dropped investing into LibreOffice because they just don't feel like they need to anymore, right? It's not part of their business. They've been investing in LibreOffice for years, but they don't want to anymore, right? So things like that are just kind of mounting up. And now on top of that, all these leaks come out, lawsuits kick off. What happens to Linux when the biggest investor in Linux is undergoing all of this at a time when they're already pulling back on Linux? What happens then? Wendell, riddle me that.
I can answer your question with another question.
Please do. That's the only way I like to hear questions answered.
Which situation do you think is worse?
Okay, ready.
VMware, an advanced hypervisor operating system with lots of advanced engineering, being taken over by Broadcom,
Okay, that sounds bad. I don't like that one. What's the next one?
Some would say being hollowed out from the inside for its technology and to extract fees from customers. Some would say.
Some would say that.
How is VMware going to continue and fare and so on and so forth in the wake of this takeover versus Linux initiatives and Linux engineering and the Linux ecosystem in the wake of large companies like Microsoft and IBM perhaps making some missteps? It's like, if their heart was in the right place trying to do the right thing and
hold on.
misfired catastrophically.
That's like saying which tastes better, gumbo or apple pie. I'm like, no. I need both. I need both in life.
No, it's like salt or gumbo. Pizza. It's salt or gumbo. One is like the ingredients to make a technology, and the one is an end product.
I'm not buying that. Like, okay, you want your first point you made. See, I don't want either of those to be happening, right? Both seem bad. I mean, as much as I don't use VMware and related products that much anymore, I used to a lot, and I still like them. I'd rather them not be hollowed out. That sucks. But at the same time, like. We're not talking about like just like little missteps, right? We're not talking about, about 2 years ago, SUSE, a company I used to work for, released an advertising campaign that consisted of a swimmer's butt with the word SUSE plastered over his butt, right? And it was the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen. That's a misstep. The butt with the guy as your ad campaign, that's a misstep. Having a years-long campaign where you specifically hire your engineering staff based on how dark and or light their skin color is, that sets you up for massive lawsuits, because these aren't just like, oh, well, they'll have to stop doing it. They're gonna get sued a lot. I mean, so much that, I mean, we're talking about lots of money. This isn't like a couple $1 million here. These lawsuits are going to be massive because it's going to be so hard to fight them.
I'm building a shape, and so that's the first point of the triangle. Here's the next point of the triangle.
All right, we got a TP. Let's go.
We are gonna see a $1 billion sole proprietor company probably in the next 3 or 4 years. We Instagram, Facebook buying Instagram, 13 people is $1 billion, but there were 13 employees in that company when they were acquired for $1 billion. So we're getting close. We may have already had the $1 billion sole proprietor. What that is not like a failing of capitalism, or, well, actually that's a whole other conversation. But let's assume
we don't need to go into that.
Assume that the value there is the individual is able to capture the output of their agency. And so I don't think that it matters how badly IBM or Microsoft or anybody else screw up, because the people that have captured the fire from the gods are still in those companies, and they're going to go off and do other things. We already see it happening with VMware.
So then what you're saying is, if the lawsuits come in and there's a tidal wave of backlash and lawsuits, and Red Hat just crumbles into oblivion in their post-Whitehurst era, that's not so bad, because a lot of the people that were doing good stuff are going to go out on their own and do good stuff elsewhere or on their own. That's kind of your thought, right?
Yep.
That's
okay.
I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, you buy into that, Rob, man?
Yeah, that actually that makes sense. I mean, it's I'm part of that original generation, Bill Gates and that era.
Old people, right?
Yeah, old people. Yes. Yeah. So where we had to invent. And now it's a completely different world, and it's really driven in a corporate way. And maybe it's time to go have a resurgence of that. That's, maybe Elon Musk will do it.
The tool. Well, I mean, I think a lot of Elon Musk gets a lot of credit for, I think, something that is not his. It's a little bit stolen valor of these kinds of people, like the individuals that have very high agency and are able to sort of work unfettered. I mean, we've all been in a corporate scenario. It's like, let's go to the corporate picnic and do the trust falls. And it's like, well, I really need to work on this bug. And I do actually trust my coworkers. Like, I get where you're going with this, and it's great, and team building and all this kind of stuff, but please just let me fix the bugs.
I mean, I like picnics and everything, but
this is the same kind of thing on the same different scale. It's like, let's if you have a team that has never been introduced to the writings of Kafka. I really think that you should like if you work on any kind of AI or user-facing system, it's like you should read, like it should be corporate, like you read Kafka and look at the suffering, and then it's like, do we really need to build an AI interactive thing that is like, oh, it reads like, it's like, oh, good news everyone, we finally built the crucible of suffering, as from Asimov's classic science fiction novel. Don't build the crucible of suffering. And it's just like, wait a minute, that wasn't the right corporate
they
takeaway.
missed the point of that book, I think. yeah I think they did miss the point of that. What they did is, instead of reading the book, they watched the Apple TV version of the show, and they just lost it completely.
We finally built it. Good news, science fiction is alive. But the people that can get this done, a lot of the time it's hard for them to do some of the infrastructural underpinning stuff to get it done, but less and less is that an impediment. And Linux as a framework for getting that done is part of why Linux has completely taken over the universe everywhere except the desktop. And so I don't care how hard IBM fumbles. I don't care if IBM plays games with the source code. It's annoying and stupid, but it doesn't mean that it's going to seriously impact thing when we're talking about a 5 or 10-year time scale.
But wait a minute. So you're saying it doesn't, there's no impact to some young, Caucasian trying to say, okay, I have ideas, and now you can't do it because you can't be hired by IBM or Red Hat or whatever. You're saying that's okay, no impact.
I think that they will have no problem if they have the skills. I think that in the world today, they have a better shot than they have ever had historically, and it is only going to get more. They're only going to get more mobility as time goes forward, because the individual has more agency than they ever have, as evidenced by the fact that you can have a 13-person billion-dollar organization.
I don't know. Things have changed too. There's another element here, because obviously the AI part. What are they teaching the AI? A lot of stuff is going to be leveraged over what AI does, and then the AI is being taught, just like your Red Hat.
I think
being taught the same stuff.
Before we go too far down the AI rabbit hole, which oh man. But let's back up just a second here, because the point Wendell was making is kind of an interesting one. So what if Red Hat and IBM and other, let's say, major Linux contributors screwed up so spectacularly with massive discrimination stuff that they cause huge tidal waves of lawsuits and executives getting fired and a massive, essentially a crash and burn, right? There's a potential here for, by the end of the year, for Red Hat to be a complete shell of its former company because of the legal problems they created for themselves. But what Wendell made a very interesting point of, well, maybe now those people will just leave Red Hat, go do things on their own, and somehow create revenue and whatnot to create sole proprietor and small company businesses to do that work. There's one thing I would like to throw into that, and that is, currently Linux, yes, is open source. Linux is free software. However, it has a gatekeeper. Linux right now, you cannot, if I want to, and I say, you know what, I have great ideas for what to do to Linux, and I want to do it right now, and I go create a big, massive 1,000-line patch, and I submit it in, there's a gatekeeper there. And for better or worse, there's a gatekeeper, and there's a gatekeeper that takes a huge, huge amount of money from Red Hat and IBM and Microsoft and all the other companies that are getting or about to get sued into a black hole because of all these issues. So if people are leaving those companies who were doing all these submissions to the Linux kernel, and they now want to go out on their own to do it, they're no longer in the companies that are paying the finances, paying the salaries of Linus Torvalds and Greg Kroll-Hartman and everyone else at the Linux Foundation, who control Linux 100%. No one can get anything past them unless they give the thumbs up, and they are paid $250 million every year to be the gatekeeper by those companies who are about to get the massive amounts of lawsuits. what happens then? It seems to me like there's a practical impediment. There's a dam, there's a wall in place. So, maybe it just means that people will go away from Linux, and all those Linuxy people at Red Hat and whatnot will suddenly become, I don't know, free BSD folks. What do you
free
think, Fisher?
BSD, yes.
Sure. Just like radio killed the TV star and Linux destroyed Windows.
I don't know. That's not.
I don't think I buy the premise. I don't think the Linux Foundation is deciding what patches get submitted.
Listen,
that's Linus and.
I'm an idiot, and
You're
I've
right.
literally written kernel modules to do things for me on unsupported hardware, and it was just
both of those statements are probably true.
Banging rocks together, and it was fine, and I didn't need Linus Torvalds or anybody else to approve it. And in fact, I would be embarrassed to show anybody, but I got it working, and it didn't matter.
This is what I'm saying. Like, okay, so being able to write your own kernel modules, that's awesome. Being able to put them up on your own website or your own Microsoft.com/GitHub account, that's neat too. But if you want to get them to be part of the broader Linux ecosystem, you got to get it submitted to the Linux kernel and get it brought into the upstream, right? I mean, if you're really looking for that, your two options are you branch everything, right? And you just fork, or you work with the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers may serve a very valid purpose. In fact, they do. But they are gatekeepers, and they're gatekeepers that are paid in full by the companies who are now facing all these troubles. Is that an issue or not?
It's a good talking point, but as a practical matter, it doesn't matter, and I can prove it.
Prove it, Wendell.
The aforementioned LibreOffice. Like, if you go to look at LibreOffice and it's like, oh, this thing sucks in LibreOffice, I think I can fix this. And you look at it, it is totally still the way the projects were maintained in the late 90s. Like, there's no DevOps, there's no integration, there's no nothing. With the kernel and Git and integration.
DevOps is not a real thing. Just to be clear here, that's a made-up word. That DevOps is not a real thing.
The infrastructure plumbing in Git and automation.
You might as well be talking about unit tests. Like, these aren't real things.
The shell scripts that go with the kernel to do the testing and everything else.
That's the one.
Really make life a lot easier if you're going to go off the beaten path, and that nothing exists like that for LibreOffice. And so, yes, to your point, there is a bit of a tar pit here. If you go off the beaten path, there's things off the beaten path that you're going to have to spend effort on that you weren't expecting to. But the friction in the kernel is dramatically less. I would argue that the friction in the kernel is dramatically less even than Windows, because the Windows kernel scheduler is still worse than a moose on rollerblades when it comes to really high core count multi-core systems, like 64, 96.
No, that's a solid burn. I like
socket. I mean, it's bad. It's real. And I'm sure that the engineering inside Microsoft is like, we really should work on the scheduler, but we can't be arsed to. And like CXL's coming down the pipe now. We're going to have NUMA nodes that don't have compute resources and have memory resources.
I would like everyone on the internet to note that I'm pretty sure Wendell Wilson of Level 1 Techs just called Dave Cutler retarded. All right.
I get that it's a here, there, be tigers situation, but come on, guys. Come on.
I think everything should be a here, there, be tigers situation. Now that I'm thinking about that phrase, I don't think there's anything that shouldn't be that phrase. Fisher, as me and Wendell were tete-a-teting there over this topic, you began to scratch your chin and look at your microphone like you wanted to say something but didn't. Did you want to say something, or did you simply think better?
I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, we're quite a ways into the lifespan of Red Hat kernel development. Maybe we are due for a little bit of a forest fire. I don't know if I buy that we're going to see them get a lot of legal trouble, because I think there's still a lot of institutional momentum around these different types of initiatives. I don't know. We'll see how much trouble they actually end up in, especially since they all have a collective effort to protect each other. But I think regardless, you are seeing a talent drain from Red Hat. I know several individuals who left in the last year, Lennart Pottering being one of the more notable ones, who now works at Microsoft but continues to develop on systemd.
Sure does.
And I just wonder, like, maybe Linux needs this a little bit. And if these companies have a brain drain, the ultimate result, regardless of how the legal stuff works out, will be less competitive products, and they'll fail in the market. And they're going to have to make changes to stay competitive. I think Red Hat has a good product. There's a lot of people that are still buying it, still willing to pay. And I think as long as they just sort this stuff out, they're going to be making money regardless. It may end up inevitably being, the most profitable thing IBM does. Even after all this, it'll just take some time.
It's in theory very possible, isn't it? I mean, it does seem like that way. With that in mind, so with this story that's happening, do you think we will hit a point in the next month or two where the average tech press will actually be covering this stuff? Do you think we're going to hit that point? I know what I think, but I'm curious what you guys think, because it's been going on. It's been a big story outside of tech, right? In the political sphere, it kind of exploded. It became this big napalm bomb that went off. But within the tech world, while I continue to get new leaks and new whistleblowers every single week, the total amount of eyeballs that look at them dwarfs anything I've ever written or recorded. So I know people are looking at it, but when I go out there to every big tech publication, it's not being covered. Do you think we're going to flash forward to February and March, and is it going to be that it's just pineapple shirted Lunduke is still harping on this, or is it going to spread beyond that? Is other people going to cover it? What do you think? Wendell, say it, Wendell. Wendell's got his hands in the air. He's going to say it.
This is I wasn't even this wasn't even on my radar before this thing, so I should probably look at this. But I have a feeling that this will probably. You remember how like this thing? Remember Jack Welch? And it's like, oh, GE, and it's like GE's gonna blah blah blah. And then later they were like, this is the guy who broke capitalism. There's most of the time there are people. Most of the time, most of the people are trying to do the right thing, and they're not awful people. Yeah. So I have faith that it's going to work itself out. And if IBM has misstepped, then yeah, they probably have some monetary and or other liability and or responsibility to, make it right, to undo the harm. But it's just is this some sort of when asbestos was a thing, it's like, we're going to put asbestos in the offices and everybody is going to be so much more comfortable because of all the asbestos. And then
it was tight. We got to bring that back. That was good stuff. Nobody was catching on fire when we had that everywhere. That's all I'm going to say is, how many times do you hear about people who spontaneous human combusted when they were covered in asbestos? Never. That's all I'm saying.
So, yeah, I mean, to Chris's point, it's like it might be time for there to be a little bit of fire now that we're asbestos free. I don't know.
Maybe. What do you think? What do you think, Chris?
I think you're missing. You got a blind spot here.
I got a lot of blind spots,
and I think you aren't considering the fact that all of these outlets that you've named so far are essentially competitors to yours. You may not see it that way, but they do, and you're also a competitor in a fundamental business model. If your business model is successful, that's a fundamental challenge to their very business model. So I don't think they're as inclined to give you or somebody like O'Keefe a lot of coverage, because it legitimizes independent media and sort of delegitimizes. Right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. No, that's a practical business decision. I mean, I get that.
I've had experience with this with Sam Bankman-Fried on the Bitcoin Dad podcast for 6 months, 7 months before SBF got arrested and before FTX crashed. We were calling him out. We were calling out the scams. We were trying to raise the red flag on Sam Bankman, and nobody covered it. But once it goes to court, you guys
were like the only ones that were harping on that for a while.
And then once it goes to court, then the other outlets start to cover it, right? Once the legal actions and the federal government press releases come out, and he goes and you get a picture of him walking in the courthouse, and then the pictures from the drawings come out, and of course the statements come out. Then they lap it up, and it'll be on the front page of The Verge for every day for a week. But while everybody was getting screwed and they were stealing millions and donating hundreds of millions to politicians and doing all these kinds of wacky things in crazy places, nobody cared when it was actually happening. And it frustrated me, because people could have avoided being hurt, and it just didn't get any coverage. And I think fundamentally it comes down to business models and not wanting to give traffic to independent media from established corporate media.
It's frustrating, isn't it? It's frustrating. Like there's the well-meaning and well-intentioned part of it being frustrating, just like you were saying, Chris. You like, okay, we're raising serious issues where people could avoid getting hurt, where people could avoid the problems, where people could mitigate losses if they just listened, if there could just be a little bit more coverage of the topic. Even if they didn't give us credit for it, they could just read it and then do their own articles on it. I mean, shoot, Wired loves to copy my articles. I know they're going to say they don't, but they do. All my stupid like history articles, they like 2 weeks later like to rewrite them. But but never any of the breaking real critical in-depth pieces, right? Because that's too intense. They can't cover those sorts of things. But then there's that other little part of it that, well, all of a sudden you've been out there harping on Sam Bankman-Fried for like friggin' half a year. And now his face is all over the front of CNN and Fox News and everything else 24/7. Wouldn't hurt for someone to look up and see who was early on in covering that story and maybe say, hey, this wasn't out of left field. We just weren't paying attention. But that guy was. It would be nice, right? Like, I mean, it would feel nice to do all that hard work and get a little bit. I mean, because I know. I can say flat out that both you and I have broken a number of stories along these lines over the last 15 plus years that we've been covering this Mishigas. And it would be nice for the other tech people in the world that cover this sort of thing to say, this is where we heard about it. We actually paid attention for once. This is where the story got broken. But again, it's independent media. We can't have that. Friggin' A. Makes me grumpy, and then I put on my pineapple shirt because it makes me feel happy on the inside. Rob, do you feel happy on the inside?
I avoid this topic on my channels because then I get targeted again. But why do you expect us to be on mainstream media? Why do you expect that? Because they disagree with you, Brian. They disagree with you. Why would you expect them to put this
you know what it is?
front and center when they disagree with you?
And the example that the lovely becoifed man up in the top right corner said, where he gave the example of Sam Bankman-Fried. I think that was a good one, right? Because it's one example of the mainstream media, and not just like the big media, but like the Register and Wired and Verge and CNET and all the various tech media outlets of stories that they want to ignore, that they like shove their hand into the dirt. They're like, I refuse to acknowledge this. And they'll even go so far as to say people like Chris are crazy conspiracy theorists, just, speaking out of turn, they're making stuff up, until all of a sudden, the story, it just broke out of nowhere and it took everyone by surprise when they just spent the last 6 months basically working hard to blast the people that are covering it. And like right now, in my outlet, I'm doing all these leaks from Red Hat and IBM and about to do Microsoft and whatnot. And I guarantee I'll roll out these Microsoft leaks. The political press will cover it almost as loudly as they cover the mechanical keyboard that's typing right now. And I really like that mechanical keyboard. It sounds great, by the way. What model do you have?
It usually filters it out. I get the Model F, the new Model F.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's beautiful. But they'll ignore that, and they'll ignore it, and they'll attack me for it, and they'll say I'm making stuff up, and it won't matter. It won't matter how much I cover it. It won't matter how many hundreds of thousands or millions of eyeballs read all the content I produce on it. None of the other outlets will cover it until there will come this magic point when, oh my gosh, there's discriminatory hiring at IBM, Red Hat, and Microsoft and others. This took us by surprise, and no one's covered this ever. And it just keeps happening. And
yeah, I think it's like happening with Sam Altman right now.
Yes,
Sam Altman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they're making him out to be this. Basically, he's getting the SBF treatment. He's on the front of magazines. He's got a seat with every world leader that he wants.
Yes.
And meanwhile, he's creating a scam coin called WorldCoin, which scans people's eyeballs and then rewards them with a scam token and he's claiming he's doing that in order to create identities that can be tracked back to your retina. So that way we can verify you're not a bot on social media. And then we have a global trade platform called WorldCoin. He's creating a problem and he's creating a solution called WorldCoin. And WorldCoin is the most disgusting scam you could possibly conceive of.
It's crazy.
It's also, they've been pre-mined like 20 to 30% of the coin. So when it goes up, they all get to dump on retail. It's adorable. His sister supposedly is online claiming lots of years of abuse, all out there on her Twitter feed. It's out there in explicit detail, and it's never been covered by the tech press.
No,
Weird.
never. And you know what? You're going to end up covering it. I'll end up covering it. I know maybe like one or two others will cover it, right? And how long do you think it'll take? 6 months, maybe 9 months?
No, it'll take until he's out of favor. Until he's out of favor for some reason. It comes out once they're out of favor. For whatever reason, political reason, machinations inside OpenAI. Like if this upset that we saw a month ago with OpenAI had gone really bad for Sam, like if Microsoft hadn't stepped in and saved the day, we probably would have seen some of this stuff get exposed. Because then all of a sudden there's an interest in covering it. But while he is essentially the savior of the industry and the only thing creating investment in the industry, they're not going to do anything negative. They're not going to cover him.
There's too much money there.
Yeah.
No, there's way too much. There's billions of dollars tied up. They can't do it. They can't.
It sounds cliche, but it's actually the way it works.
It's interesting how with the SBF, you notice how like the political donations aspect, like those charges went away, and then it was just like, oh yeah, some of the chart, and then you dig into it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this rabbit hole, everything is rotten all the way down. And it's
it was the Friday before New Year's. They announced they're not going to pursue any of the political donation investigation. They dropped that news on a Friday evening before New Year's.
Always.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Just like, notice the Linux Foundation and Mozilla announced their annual reports right before Christmas. They dumped those right before Christmas. They're like, here you go. Merry Christmas, everybody. Does it show massive, strange corruption and weird money usage? But it's right before Christmas.
What do we got to do to get Purism to release one of those reports? Because they're supposed, as a social purpose company, they're supposed to be publishing reports. California doesn't require, but Washington does. They are registered in Washington, and they've never published one of those reports. What do we got to do to get Todd to get one of those reports out the door?
I guarantee you, though, he's not going to listen to me on that one.
Come on, I want to see.
That ain't happening. I'll make a call for it. Todd. Hey, Todd, my ex-boss at Purism. Release one of those reports, Todd. It's not going to happen.
It says right there, you're supposed to, right there in the rules. Follow the rules.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not going to happen
for relentlessly reasonable people.
Unacceptable. They won't buy it. They won't buy it at all. Gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you. Honestly, when I'm kicking off this show, we're doing these weekly from now on. And for my first show, I wanted to have 3 guys on that I respected and I thought were different enough. Like you guys cover distinctly different stuff, but there's a bit of overlap. And some of the few real independent techie people that I really respect. So thank you, all 3 of you, for coming on. Chris Fisher, let's go for you for what URL? Where should people go to experience your awesomeness and to find out the coverage that you're doing right now that will get ignored for the next 6 to 9 months before the next big story breaks unexpectedly?
JupiterBroadcasting.com.
Oh, it's a nice website. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, whoever came up with the guys that came up with that name and that domain name were brilliant.
You can just picture it. You can picture it. It's just
you can picture it. You can. You can picture a couple of guys sitting in a tiny little room after they were playing a video game, coming up with that name. Rob Braxman, my man, who covers some of the most amazing cell phone tech, privacy and security issues. Where should people go? What's the universal resource locator of your dreams, my man?
Well, YouTube, Rob Braxman Tech.
Boo! Not YouTube, Rob Braxman Tech. Where else? Give me a better one.
Rumble, Rob Braxman Tech.
Oh, that's a better one. That's a better one. You got a straight up domain.
RobBraxman.locals.com.
Oh, I like that one.
Because of you. Actually, because of you.
Rob's on locals, my man. I tell you guys. I lost access to X, so at the moment, no X. Yeah, it's just because Elon hates you. It's a personal thing. I've heard about it. He's pissed at you. Wendell, what do you got? Where should people go?
level1text.com, and then you can get everywhere else from there. We got a nice
Everywhere else
forum.
from
You can hang out on the forum and complain
We
about
do have a
things.
nice
and
forum.
maybe we'll deal with it.
Yeah,
not.
maybe 50-50. All three of these guys have the YouTubes, but whatever. Visit them in the other places. Go to their forums and their podcasts and all the other. I know, Wendell, you're mostly on the YouTubes, but you're other places too, right?
Yeah, I really just computer janitoring. And it's like, can I make a computer janitoring video out of this? No. All right, well, somebody has this obscure problem. This is how you fix it.
That's how you fix it. Can I tell you guys a secret? I just got a little alert. I have apparently been running this whole time off of battery. I have not been plugged in this entire time.
Professional. You professional.
Way to go, me. Oh my goodness. But it lasted. So huzzah. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having
We'll be
us.
doing this every week on Wednesday, live streaming on Rumble and Locals. If you don't currently subscribe to the Lunduke Journal, you're doing it wrong. Go to lunduke.locals.com or just lunduke.com, because that's where everything is. There's so many links there, and they're awesome, and they have HTTPs all over the place. And definitely go subscribe to these guys wherever the heck they're at. Even if it's just on YouTube, they'll make that better soon, I'm sure, because they're nice people. All right, everybody, go forth into the world. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, I do declare, end broadcast.
I died like